Hey everyone, and welcome to your weekly college basketball bracketology update with America's #1 bracketologist, Bracket Dom of Bracketometry.com. 124 spots better than ESPN's Joe Lenardi, 178 spots better than Jerry Palm, according to Bracket Matrix. So if you really want to know where your team stands, you've come to the right place. We're now 6 weeks into the season, and things are starting to become a little clearer. I understand that we're getting close to the first bracket reveal. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I think as things currently stand, probably next Tuesday, I should have my first one coming out. So next week at this time, we'll be talking about a lot more than just the top teams, and we can start really diving into that bubble, who's in, who's out, even looking at some of those mid-majors that could be sneaky this year. So yeah, it's getting real. It's getting exciting. We are truly in the heart of college basketball season now.
Yeah, it's great. And so that actually reminds me too. So if anyone has a question they're on, they certainly can drop a question. We'll try and get to it before the end of the show here. Also leave a question for next week so we can bring this up with it just about your team, your conference, whatever it might be. We're more than happy to answer those questions. All right. So let's get into the field right now. So we'll get that all up here. And so we've been just going over the top 4 seeds of the right now. And not a whole lot of movement in some respects. I mean, this is probably the first week we've had where it's been pretty stable from the previous weeks. I think we've got a little bit of movement. We've had a few teams come out. I think we had Tennessee leave and we had Illinois come back in. And I think that's the major move. I think everyone else just kind of shuffled around where they were. You still have Michigan as the overall number 1 seed, though. It looks like there's solidly there for right now.
For sure. And yeah, that was the one spot swap, and that was probably the easiest swap of all time since Illinois beat Tennessee. Tennessee was kind of just barely on that 4 line. Illinois was ready to take their spot. And yeah, head-to-head win. That's the easiest way to switch 2 teams around. So yeah, and in terms of other teams with any sort of movement at all, Iowa State, obviously, with their absolute shellacking of Purdue, very deservedly on the 1 seed line now. Now, as we speak, they're currently losing to Iowa, so that could certainly change at the drop of a hat. So, yeah, I don't know what that says about the Big Ten transitive property. Is Iowa better than Purdue? Are they the new Big Ten favorites? Right. Wouldn't go that far. Yeah. I think that's just more of college basketball being college basketball and any given day.
Right. A rivalry game kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So when you still have Arizona, Duke are still number 1 seeds. Yeah. Like you said, Purdue, Vanderbilt, UConn, and Gonzaga pretty much stable. Michigan State drops back a spot. I imagine this from the matchup they had against Duke, similar to Purdue dropping back because of their loss to Iowa State. And then I guess things are pretty stable. And I don't know. There's not much more to talk about the field. I guess it's pretty much what it was when we looked at it last week, except I had to find a new logo for Iowa State for at least for at least a week.
Exactly. Let's see how long it stays there. And yeah, for Michigan State, if any Michigan State fans feel a little gypped, like, hey, we lost to Duke, why are we dropping a seed line? It's not even really so much that loss. That's not a loss that hurts the resume. Obviously, had they won, it would have very much helped it. That's just more Gonzaga and just how they absolutely dog walked Kentucky, and that just shot their metrics up, and it was hard to leave them off the 2 seed line after that. But yeah, I think the question is that going to look like a good win for much longer? Is Kentucky really a good basketball team this year, which there's certainly questions about?
Yeah, I mean, there's coming to the season, what is like a $22 million, estimated roster, which is, blows everyone else. I think it's like the most expensive one. Maybe Michigan's more expensive, but I guess the question is, are they at risk for not making the tournament? I know you don't have your bubble right now. That'll be next week. We'll talk about it, but it looks like the teams they should beat, they've beaten pretty handily, the quad 4 teams. But boy, anytime they play someone who's challenging, I would be a little concerned as a Kentucky fan, don't you think?
Oh, I 100% would be. It's one of those weird ones where I legitimately might not have them in the field next week, because if you look at what they've done, you said they've taken care of the quad 4 teams they were supposed to, but that's all they've done. They don't even have a Q3 win. No Q2 wins, no Q3 wins. Their entire resume is 6 wins at home against quad 4 teams. That's not a tournament resume. And it's weird to say right now, because obviously at the end of the year, there'll be a lot more data than that. And there'll never be a team that at the end of the year has only played 10 games. But theoretically, if a team at the end of the year only won games against quad 4 teams and lost every game against quad 1 and played none in between, that in no rhyme or reason is a tournament resume. And even their results-based metrics back that up. And their strength of record is outside of the top 100 right now. Now, the predictive still like them, and I think that kind of backs the fact that they're going to get themselves back into the field sooner rather than later. But yeah, until they actually get a good win to back up what the predictive metrics are saying, this is currently not a tournament team. But again, don't get me wrong. I think they still will be one, but maybe not towards the top like their fans were hoping at the start of the year with all that money they have on that roster.
Right. I mean, because essentially you have to beat somebody, and they'll have plenty, because of the SEC, which is one of the better conferences. They'll have plenty of opportunities to play their way into the field. But at this point, I think you could say they have not given themselves any favors by putting themselves in a position where they can, not have a great SEC conference season. They pretty much have to do pretty well in the conference in order to feel comfortable going in the field, right? I realize the K in the front of the jerseys were something. And I think that's why, certainly why they had the preseason ranking, and of course the transfer portal and the roster they had coming in. But if this was like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another team. Let's say this is,
North Carolina a few years back had a pretty similar resume to what they do right now, where they had won every single game against Q2 and below and didn't have a single Q1 win. And then down the stretch, they finally get that one Q1 win, and that's enough to just sneak them in the back end of the field. So it's kind of in that same boat, to where as long as they avoid bad losses, which, again, there's not a ton of in the SEC, and they pip one or two good wins here or there, well, they'll have a ton of opportunities. That will get them in. But yeah, they better get at least a couple of quality wins. I know they'll have a lot of chances, but if they let them all slide by, then maybe this could not be a tournament team. We'll certainly see.
It'd be very strange watching Kentucky play a play-in game, but that could certainly happen. That's something you could envision. At this point, that could be a 10 seed, which on some level,
I remember them losing to Robert Morris in the NIT that one year. Maybe it's a repeat of that.
Right. Well, you certainly wouldn't want to be that 7 seed that has to play them, or I guess the 6, or the possibly that 3 in the second round or something. So, all right, well, let's move on and start talking about the conferences a little bit. We had a little bit of movement here. The bottom 3, the SEC, ACC, Big East, as 3, 4, and 5, have been stable, and we just had a flip flop between Big 10 and Big 12 for the last couple weeks. Once again, aside from me having the wrong date on the top of the screen.
I wouldn't even have noticed.
Yeah, December 11th. You once again have the Big 12 on top. I imagine that's because, of course, the Big 10's top team, or one of their top teams, Purdue, lost to a top team in Big 12. You have Arizona and Iowa State as 1 seeds, which gives me the impression that probably the Big 12 overall is going to be a little bit stronger. Is that your feel?
Yeah, I think they were pretty close already going into last week. I mean, even really the whole top 3 is pretty close. But yeah, last week when Iowa State beats Purdue in a head-to-head top 10 game, Michigan State, another one of the Big 10 top teams, falls to Duke. Obviously not a Big 12's team, but just not getting that quality win they could have. I think that kind of just swapped them around. But again, I wouldn't put too much credence into that right now. I don't think there's really any large gulfs between any of those 3 for sure. And even the top teams in the ACC are looking pretty good right now. They're just kind of stuck in 4 because their depth just isn't really the same as those top 3.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've been looking at now. In one of the other shows I do, we talk about sort of the margin of victory. There seems to be a lot of bigger disparity, and the margin between winning and losing, it seems to be much larger this year, especially when we look at within a conference. We spend most of our time talking about the Big 10. It seems like the teams at the bottom of the Big 10 are pretty bad, and the teams at the top are really pretty good, and the middle sort of just the middle. Do you see that same thing repeating in other conferences like the Big 12 and the SEC, where you have the teams at the bottom are just really pretty terrible, and then you have a couple really good teams and then kind of middling in the middle?
Yeah, I think those top 3 conferences are really all kind of mirroring each other to an extent. The Big 12 may be a little bit deeper than the other 2 and kind of helps them get that top heaviness. And then meanwhile, the ACC and the Big East, or the Big East specifically, they're not looking like that. They got a couple teams at the top, and then there's a massive drop off without even a middle ground. It almost seems like at this point. But yeah, in terms of the top conferences, they do all kind of share that same vibe in terms of how the teams are spread out for sure.
So like with the Big East, we're talking about basically UConn, and then there's St. John's maybe. And then after that, even Creighton, I feel like they just got blown out by Nebraska recently. So maybe Nebraska is better than we sort of thought coming to the season, but it seems like the Big East there's not much there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think maybe a surprise team out of the Big East this year so far looks like it might be Seton Hall. But when Seton Hall, you're arguing to be the third best team in the Big East. Clearly, that depth just isn't what we thought it would be. Butler also looking pretty decent so far. I mean, they have that win against Virginia, a couple other Q2 wins here and there. So they got a couple other teams, but again, I don't think Butler and Seton Hall would be anywhere close to arguably the third or fourth best teams in any of these other conferences. So that's just where they're at right now.
All right. And so then a couple of final questions here. So of course we always ask, what are the games you're looking forward to this week that you think are going to be some separation between teams for the seed lines and getting in or out of the tournament? I mean, it's still very early, obviously. And I feel like most things have been baked in the cake as far as the conferences, as far as, which conference general strength is going to be. So right now are there any big games coming up this next week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this weekend, just on Saturday alone, at Arizona, Alabama, and that's two of the teams we just saw there in the top four in the CM Newton Classic, which I always misread as the Cam Newton Classic. That should be a fantastic game. Gonzaga getting another shot at a ranked team playing UCLA this weekend. UCLA, that's a team that I had in my top four a bunch of times until the last couple of weeks. Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, that's a team that can maybe get a quality win against Gonzaga to get themselves back in that mix, but another quality chance for Gonzaga themselves. And looking at a few other ones, Illinois, who just popped into the top four, playing Nebraska, who you mentioned, who's undefeated. Nebraska undefeated, but not really much on their resume to warrant a top four seed right now. They were to walk into Illinois and actually win that game. Now you're undefeated with a really good win. That could send them up flying up the seed list pretty quickly. So big opportunity for them. And what's the one other one I had my eye on? Arkansas, Texas Tech as well. That's one more where those teams have been kind of in and out of that top four. And so I had a little bit of a separation game between those two teams that feel pretty similar right now to each other, kind of right out of that elite territory.
And we talked about Kentucky as far as, skating on thin ice right now. Are there any other teams that you think that are traditional teams you expect to be in the tournament that you think could potentially have might be in trouble?
Yeah. One team I would say, I think they're probably going to be okay now that they have that. They have some nice wins over St. John's and NC State, but I've still been a little disappointed in Auburn so far this year. And despite those two Q1 wins, just the basketball I've seen has just kind of looked a little shaky, a little more incoherent than what I would expect. Obviously, new coach, growing pains, but they're going to need to turn it on in the SEC if they want to stay solidly in the field, which they would be right now. So that's not one based off of, it's more kind of based off vibes. Like they have a tournament resume right now. They're deserving to be where they're at, but I don't know. I'm just seeing some inconsistencies there that they need to prove me wrong as they get into conference play.
All right, we'll wrap it up there, and looking forward to next week when we'll get to dive into a little bit more when we get the actual brackets, and we're going to have bubble teams to talk about. And
oh yeah, a lot of fun coming up.
Whole thing. So if you want to know where your team stands, once you see those revealed, which we think is early next week before we go on, usually we shoot around for Wednesday or so, hit up Dom at @BracketDom, or you can certainly hit him on email at bracketdom@gmail.com. So until next time, make sure your brackets are clean. We'll see you guys later. Bye.